Michaels had come back and said, and now more with Needy Suckbag. Mr. Daniels, I got to tell you, I had a bad day Friday. I had a very bad personal day, one of the worst of the year. And then I get into the car and I turn the radio on, and to hear myself described like that, boy, I almost drove into the canal next to Griffin Road. You bring me a little pink carnation here today. This is going to make up for...
Well, it matches your shirt. I found something that would color coordinate with your...
Actually, this is peach color. This is not pink.
Well, see, that shows why I'm not a good dresser, because I can't really tell colors. One of the most fabulous personalities in all of South Florida radio, Mr. Greg Budell.
A great human being.
But with a skin about, what is it, like a half a mil thick, like one of those cheap plastic garbage bags. I mean, come on, look, the man has a full head of hair. He's good-looking. He's got a fabulous wardrobe. Six-figure income. What am I? I'm a little schlep, 6 to 9 p.m. I'm in radio purgatory fighting, television news and everything. And this guy is going around, oh, you hurt me so deeply. Like, he didn't know my name before I was doing this. It's the only way I can get my name mentioned on the air around here. Is to take cheap shots.
What was wrong with my Huizenga interview on Friday? I thought it was a good one. I spoke to him as a baseball fan.
Well, I didn't actually hear the Huizenga interview.
And you guys were ripping me on Friday for
Well, other people did.
Who?
And I just followed it third hand.
Who was ripping me for that interview?
Oh, Siderman, Kane.
Oh, Siderman,
Well, I did hear a portion of it where you sucked up like a needy suck bag to Wayne, like, could I be put on the short list for that? I would like certainly,
I thought that was
to be put
clever.
on the...
I thought that was clever. That was honest.
You could do that off the air. You can give him your tape. You're doing play-by-play for Miracle Baseball.
I'm working in the minor league.
You're so miserable here on the FTL network that... Gee, I hope someone will bail me out from this obviously mistake I made coming over here to do talk radio and let me do play-by-play, huh?
Well, it is the only job that I would give up this one to take.
You see, already, keeping those windows open. You see what I'm talking about?
And I think there would be a stampede to the front door. I don't think there's anybody here who wouldn't love to be the play-by-play announcer for Major League Baseball.
I would love to do it, even
would you give up your psychology practice to do that, Doctor?
Not really.
Oh, come on, Doctor. Sure you would. To do baseball?
You could do the psycho color. We could have you do the third chair.
Yeah, you could. That would be great to have psychological analysis of what happened on the field. You know, was that a stolen base or was that an act of aggression that this player?
There we go. A little hesitant, moving to his left there. What does that mean?
Now, do you think he hit him with the pitch on purpose, or was there some kind of deviant anger in his past that he was acting out on?
You're doing very well, guys, without me.
Well, anyway, let's get back to this now. Since we have the doctor here. So you what did you do? Did you go home and drown your sorrows in decaffeinated coffee for the entire weekend, or what?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah? Now, see, I feel terrible because this is theater. We're like a big family. We're supposed to air our dirty linen, our stained underwear.
I wanted to go see a dirty movie. A good thing I didn't. Things have been happening in the
It's a good thing you wore your button-fly jeans anyway. I think you're totally overreacting for poor Pee Wee. Made you look... It takes on a whole new connotation now, doesn't it?
It sure does. I've never liked him. I've never been a Pee Wee fan.
I have been a big Pee Wee fan. I think he's a very creative guy.
He wears lipstick. Why should men don't wear lipstick?
He's never been married,
What about the Ultimate Warrior wears face makeup? Now, are you going to tell me that I have to go home and get my little kids? I have to get out their Pee Wee dolls with the pull the string in the back, and he goes, that's fine for me. What about you? And burn those, and the little cherry. We had the little cherry thing, too.
Why don't we get on the Al Rantel show, with the lipstick,
Oh, boy, he's taken. That's a good thing that Al's out of town.
Well, he's got a wrestler in his place today. Dr. Red Roberts is going to be here, focusing on modern bounty hunting with guests the Ram Man and Terminator.
They sound like wrestlers, not bounty hunters. Seriously, can we get back to Pee Wee? Now, you really feel that Pee Wee should be... burned at the stake, I imagine.
Well, not burned at the stake. I don't think he's a good example for kids anymore.
Well, we don't know that. Now, let's not convict the man until he's at a trial.
Let's assume that he did do it just for this nature of this conversation.
All right.
Because if he's innocent, then, of course, this whole conversation is moot.
Exactly.
So let's assume that what we think happened actually happened.
Now, what did he didn't fondle anyone, did he?
No, he just stood up
himself.
Greg, you know what he did.
Well, he was observed exposing himself and masturbating in the movie theater.
Which was he? He wasn't at
we talk about masturbation and
an adult
Steve Kane.
Well, an adult theater, that's kind of what you have to do, isn't it? Don't they take your seat away unless you do that?
First of all, there were no children in the place.
Obviously
by definition.
not. Triple X rated.
Well, then why arrest him at all? Why would why not just let that
Well, it is a
activity...
lewd and lascivious act.
Was it in the darkened theater?
And I don't want a man who, with a lewd and lascivious behavior pattern, entertaining my kids.
One lousy, lewd, and lascivious act, you're going to ban the man from television forever?
I'm also a child psychologist, so I really have to say that it certainly is a very negative, poor image.
Yeah.
Assuming that it occurred. Assuming that it occurred.
Well, no, wait a minute.
It is a
paraphrase the Bible,
image,
Let he who is without a Vaseline jar, let him cast the first stone, all right? Let's be honest about this. Just pillorying the man.
I wonder what the listening audience thinks about that.
Well, let's go. What's the tally so far?
We have 1-on-1. We're tied for castrating Pee Wee Herman.
Judy.
Oh, boy.
Judy, you're on. Hello? Judy? Judy, come in. Going once, twice, we'll put her back on hold. Let's go to Lois.
Poor Greg, baby.
Thank you.
You need some soothing words today.
Yeah, I do.
All the way. What about the word responsibility? I can't take it anymore. I have had it now with all this nonsense. How about these people taking some responsibility? He's a children's star, and he could have hired these movies, done whatever he wanted to do in his own home. Why did he have to do this in public?
Yeah, that's part of the psychological profile on this particular arrest. I mean, what drives somebody to do something like that in public? I'm sure this kind of stuff happens in homes all over the place.
His show was canceled, and all this publicity might bring him back into the limelight, and he'll be writing a book how his father abused him. And
are you in favor of his shows being canceled?
What?
Are you in favor of his shows being canceled?
Well, after this, yes. I think that people should have some responsibility. I know years ago we would have said he's a degenerate if we wanted to fight anything like that.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to be a public hero, you've got to...
Yes, and I think that responsibility to put yourself in front of children where we tell them no to drugs and all that, and then they get rewarded afterward. If John, Jim, or whoever would have done this, he would have been arrested. And next time he was looking for a job, they would have said, well, you have a record. We're not hiring.
See, I've never been comfortable watching Pee Wee entertain. I've just...
Well, see, that you have to separate yourself, because you didn't like Pee Wee. And I like Pee Wee's show, but I try to separate myself from it. Let's take another example. Arnold Schwarzenegger, an admitted steroid user. Not a good image for children. Should we not allow kids in to see his movies?
Has he come out and said that he's not a steroid user now?
No, not now, but I believe he has admitted in print and in interviews that he did when he was winning all those Mr. Olympia titles.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that...
What about all the ball players who go into drug rehab? They come back, they get another shot.
If they take responsibility.
Yeah. Well,
this is a little bit different, though. This is not an athlete who has, developed an illness. This is a behavior. This is a...
But isn't that an illness, doctor? You tell us.
The real problem is that he deals so much with young children.
Yeah.
See, that's the dilemma that we're being faced.
Sports people.
Yes.
Don't they? Role models and things?
Yes, they have provided a very negative role model, many of them have, because of drug use.
Yes.
And they try to overcome that by saying no to drugs and being active in fundraising for drug centers. I know that when I was active with Here's Help, the anti-drug center, we had many of the Dolphin football players give their time to help us fundraise.
I'm just wondering how much of Pee Wee's character is creation or how much of his character was driven through other weirdnesses. You know what I'm saying?
Look, it's certainly an inexcusable behavior. Now, as the call, you're still on the air, caller?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that he's got to take his medicine and have all his shows off the air and be evaporated from the face of the earth?
Why did he not think about it before he did the act?
Well, let's say he did this act. What should take place now?
Well, he should be dealt with as well as an ordinary person who hasn't got a big name.
Should all his toys be taken off the sale market and not put in stores anymore?
Yes, because I have grandchildren, and they really thought he was...
I think they should make him disappear.
Huh?
Like the call. It's 11:33. We got to take a break on the Needy Suckbag Show. Only 27 more needy sucking minutes left Until noon when Dr. Red Roberts comes in, we'll be right back.
AM 1400 WFTL, Florida's talk leader. Florida's talk leader, WFTL, 1400 AM and more with Greg Budell.
Well, a little positive reinforcement there, a little self-esteem building thing. With me is Dr. Feldman, psychologist. You have an incredible background. I feel like I'm not taking full advantage here. And when he's been commenting with us, we're talking about Pee Wee Herman's arrest and should Blockbuster pull all of his videos out and his shows be canceled, etc. And I say yes, and let's see who agrees and disagrees with that. Judy? Hello? I don't think Judy's there. Either that or line 1 just doesn't work. Hello?
Yes.
You're on.
How you doing, Greg?
Okay.
My opinion on the issue is that you ought to let the marketplace decide Pee Wee's future rather than have some kind of censorship. I don't think his actions were all that great, the masturbation in public. But on the other hand, I think a man should be entitled to earn a living if he can and not become a ward of the state.
Well, let's compare it to the cop where there's an allegation of abuse. And why suspend him with pay? Why not just let him stay on the force until the allegation is proved or disproved? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, one other thing we could mention is that this is a misdemeanor. This is not some felony act on his part.
Well, it's not whether it's a misdemeanor or a crime. It's the nature of the crime that bothers me.
But it only involved him. It did not involve any children who his audience seems to...
But it does involve the children because the children are now going to be asking questions about Pee Wee Herman and what he did. And, you have to be... What dangers, what's at risk here for a child connecting his behavior?
The confusion of let's say, a 4, 5, 6-year-old child will now say, if, let's say, they become aware of what happened, they would then have to question themselves as to whether that behavior is acceptable or not. In other words, what would you think about a 5-year-old attitude towards a person who does this? Should he be liberal and forget about such action, or should he feel that that's a bad thing to do?
I don't know if the term is to be liberal. I would say he could be responsible and understand that masturbation in public is against the law, and therefore is not an acceptable thing. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying. So therefore, he did something that was not proper.
Right.
I don't see why we should spend the rest of our time trying to destroy him because of that.
So you in favor of letting him stay on the air as he is?
Sure. Matter of fact, well, he was masturbating. It did not involve anyone else other than himself, and I think it's...
Well, that's not true because he was within view of the other people.
But let me say this.
So, it didn't physically involve someone else, but visually they were involved.
Would you describe that as a disturbed individual who would masturbate in public like that?
Well, that would be one of the categories of sexual deviant behavior, according to the APA description of sexual behavior.
Okay, so sexually deviant behavior is not the kind of stuff that I want a guy who is entertaining my children to be connected with, and I think that they should yank
well,
it.
I think you have the ability to censor him for your children by way of not going to Blockbuster to get his videos and not turning on the channel to watch him.
Would you do that? Would you censor your 5-year-old?
Would I censor my 5-year-old? Well, I would hope that my child didn't even like Pee Wee Herman from the beginning.
Yeah, well, that
would be rather strange.
Well, Pee Wee has always been one of those love him or hate him kind of characters, and I have never liked Pee Wee Herman because there was something weird about him. He was too weird for me, and it was one of those smoke, there's fire kind of deals. And I didn't like him, not because I thought his material was uncreative or whatever. I just didn't like him because he was too weird for me, and this reinforces my belief. All right, thanks a lot for the call. Let's go to Alan. That opens up a line, by the way, at 800-874-3454. Hello?
How you doing?
Okay, what do you think?
Well, did we say we got to go pull down all the Rob Lowe videos?
Oh, good point.
All right, that's a valid analogy, I suppose.
However, Rob Lowe is not a young preteen child star.
Well, I'm not so sure Pee Wee was either. I mean, he entertained me. I mean, a lot of kids couldn't understand what he did, you know?
Well, he has a child show, child TV show.
That's what they call it. I used to not go out late Saturday, Friday night, so I could watch that thing on Saturday morning.
Oh, so you like him? You like him?
No, I'm 28 years old. I thought Pee Wee Herman's movie, especially Pee Wee's Big Adventure, I thought that was a great movie. It's one of the funniest movies I ever saw. I know the guy's kind of.
But you're speaking from an adult perspective, sir. And but what we want to know is, what about kids who are going to be asking questions?
Well, I think every parent has a responsibility to be careful in how they present things to children. I mean.
All right. So how are you going to present this to your child?
Well, I think most parents would be evasive on an issue like that to small children. You don't come out and say he was masturbating, because kids don't know what that means. You don't teach children sex education at 5. There's certain kinds or levels that they can understand, but you don't get them into biology until, they're in junior high school, right?
So you think really that the kids really will never know the details of what happened?
That's right. And except for all this overexposure with the media, I think what Pee Wee did was wrong, definitely, hell, I was crushed when I heard about it. I couldn't believe he'd do something like that, and it was sexually deviant behavior, but like this other caller said, he didn't go out and it wasn't like he did something with someone else. Look at all the other prominent figures in public that are doing things like, the people in the ministry, the people in the government. Look at the Kennedys. This guy's just some goofball actor that has his shtick, and I think we're blowing it way out of proportion.
Well, I guess the standards for child actors and stars are that they can sort of do things and be forgiven for them.
Now, if such a charge had been leveled against Captain Kangaroo, I could say I would have been shocked and horrified. But in this case, I got to tell you, I was not surprised.
But Captain Kangaroo and Pee Wee Herman were two totally different kinds of actors. I think more adults like Pee Wee Herman than children did. More adults understand.
Well, that's not what the television ratings show.
Let me ask you a supposition. Let's say that Captain Kangaroo was found guilty of the exact same act. Would you try to ban his show because he was so much stronger for children in your eyes?
It wouldn't matter what I did, because his show would get pulled right then and there.
Would you be in favor of it getting pulled?
Sure, I would.
You'd be in favor of Captain Kangaroo's show getting pulled,
but not Pee Wee Herman.
Well, see, Pee Wee Herman's show did get pulled. I mean, that's already a reality, right?
But you're not in favor of it.
Well, whatever happens. I'm not gonna, I'm not going to say that I think that it's right or wrong. I mean, I think what he did was wrong, and he's going to have to suffer his consequences. I'm not going to lobby for or against him. I'm just trying to say that I think that this thing shouldn't get blown out of proportion. I mean, what he did was wrong, but I never really looked at him as a child actor. I looked at him as someone who's pretending to be a child actor, but it's more for an adult crowd. You have to be an adult to understand the subliminal humor that he had, What about other personalities? Greg, I know you went through some kind of problems in the past, and
right.
Do you think that should have canceled your career to a screeching halt? Or do you think people should get another chance?
Well, I took responsibility for it. We haven't given Pee Wee time to address this, to make some kind of public response to it.
Yeah, it'll have to go through the courts. So we're all talking about it, and that might even jeopardize his possibility of getting a fair trial, don't you think?
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Good thing.
Appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
And that opens up a line at 733-1400. We go to Dorothy.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to make a few points, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, number one, people like Pee Wee Herman depend on children. They're their audience. That's how they make their money. They know they're going to be in the public eye. If they're going to be in the public eye, they're not stupid enough to realize that no one's going to find out about something like this. They want the money, they want the fame, they want all the adulation, and yet they turn around and they do something like this. Do those people really want to wait until someone like Pee Wee Herman molests their child?
So what would you suggest?
You cut it off at the quick. You take this man and you put him in therapy, and I would not show anything he has done in the past or is doing now until that man is rehabilitated. There's too much child abuse in this world.
What would this kind of an incident tell you about his sexual orientation? doctor?
I think it's slightly perverted.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I would say you have to nip it in the bud.
So to speak.
Yes, exactly. I mean, maybe we can turn Pee Wee Herman around, and maybe he can be, a productive citizen 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now. We don't even know what or if he's done anything with children. What do we really know about his private life?
This could be the tip of the iceberg.
Is that your suspicion?
Yeah, I feel that there's a lot of sexual activity that we don't know about that he might be deviantly guilty of.
How can we honestly stop the children from watching him? We all know about latchkey kids. We all know about babysitters. Unfortunately, in today's society, mothers have to work sometimes to put food on the table.
Of course, the show itself is not obscene.
No, the show isn't. But when you have a young child that looks at it, oh, he's wonderful, he's terrific, everything he does is so terrific, and then they find out about this. And let me tell you something. They have sex education and AIDS education in the public schools in kindergarten. These kids know what masturbation is.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I mean, you watch that new movie, Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes will tell you something.
You're right.
I don't think I could say it on the air. I don't know. But, these children are not stupid anymore. For the last 10 years, parents have been told, teach your children about their body parts. Don't use other words.
All right, thanks a lot for the call. You say pull the stuff then.
I would. Give this man some therapy and see where he's coming from.
All right, I think the police found out. It's 14 minutes before noon. We'll take a break and come right back on the FTL Network.
It's back to Greg Budell on Florida's Talk Leader, 1400 WFTL.
Talk, 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 talk.
9 minutes before noon on the Budell Show. My guest is psychologist Dr. Samuel A. Feldman, and we've been talking about Pee Wee Herman's arrest and what do we do with this guy. And we have lots of people willing to offer suggestions. Tilly.
Yes. I can't understand all these people being so sanctimonious. There have been priests and ministers who have fondled children. And what does the church do? They move them to another...
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Yes, it absolutely...
We're talking about a national public figure who entertains kids,
right,
spending his time in a XXX-rated theater, masturbating in public, exposing himself. That's not the kind of person I want entertaining my kid.
You don't have...
So what do we do? Put him on a pedestal? Is that what you'd like us to do with this guy?
Every little boy and every little girl has played doctor at one time or another. There are female toys in stores that are sold for women to masturbate themselves. What is this all of a sudden? The whole world...
The issue is not masturbation. The issue is where.
Masturbation.
It's where.
It's where.
It's where, not rare. I'm not talking like Elmer Fudd now. I said it's where he masturbated.
But he should have listened to Alan Burke's show Sunday.
I don't want to listen to Alan Burke's show. Hello, it's Ron.
Yes, hi, how are you today? Listen, first of all, where did you get the idea that he was masturbating in public? I understood from the article that he was masturbating in a private booth, one of those private show booths. Well,
he couldn't have been that private because it says in the Herald, Rubens was observed exposing himself and masturbating.
Well, somebody must have opened the door or something. We have to know that. Sometimes he's...
charged with exposure of a sexual organ.
Right. And number two, why is everybody talking about children involved here? There were no children involved. Why all of a sudden should he become a danger?
No, the children become involved when they hear about Pee Wee getting arrested for deviant sexual behavior.
It's kind of like a situation where we create the problem, then we got to worry about protecting children. Why don't they just leave the guy alone? He wasn't out there in the middle of the street. He was in a XXX booth somewhere, and maybe he had a curtain and somebody observed him. Or the police made a raid. We don't know exactly what...
Okay, why don't you assume, just for argument's sake, that he was out in the middle of the orchestra and he showed himself down the aisle? Would that change your mind?
I'll repeat that again.
Let's say that he was right in the middle of the orchestra area of the movie theater, and that he was in the middle of the aisle, not in a booth.
And then he masturbated?
And he showed himself, and he masturbated to the whole audience.
Well, I think that's a completely different...
All right, but let's assume on that, let's say that's what happened, just for the sake of discussion. Would you then have a different view as what should happen to his programming?
Well, if he indeed was in the middle of a movie theater and he began to expose himself, first of all, I would like to hear his side of it. Maybe he was making some kind of statement that made sense. I don't know. If it was just for some deviant sexual need that he had, then I would agree that there's maybe he should not be in contact with children. It's possible. But I'd have to know more about why he exposed himself.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call.
All right, bye.
Good morning. Mildred?
Yes, I'm going to a different subject. It so happens something was bothering me because I listened to your show Friday, and you had such a good show. And it so happened I resented Gary Daniels knocking down your show, and I thought it was really wrong of him to do that because he wouldn't like if anybody did that to him. And I had to really mention this because I love your shows, and it's the first time I ever called a talk show. But I had to tell you this.
That's very nice of you. That's really... I'm glad that you called, Greg. I can see the smile on your face. You seem to be enjoying this call.
Oh, it's nice to get a stroke. Better to get one than to have one.
No, because he's very sensitive about his shows, and nobody else mentioned it but him. It wasn't...
I just thought being a needy suckbag was kind of a,
I don't think it was nice.
Do you think he was somewhat jealous of Greg?
Pardon?
Do you think that Gary Daniels may be a little jealous of Greg?
Of anybody.
Huh?
I think he's jealous of anybody.
Yeah, I think he keeps mentioning that he's jealous of Greg's full head of hair and good looks. Maybe he's deep down and that he has a better show position than Gary Daniels. Yes. I think maybe Gary Daniels is a little jealous of Greg.
I think so. I think that's the answer. But I resented that.
Well, I think we should pull all of Gary's programming out of the video stores. Or something like that.
I love Craig's shows. He's so easy and so nice that I really enjoy it. And he had a show Friday that was just magnificent. And the way he knocked it down, it just bothered me.
Yeah, and I heard Steve, getting on my case about the memory expert who was on the air with me. This man has been on The Tonight Show and Donahue and everybody else. He's been on every national network television show there is.
I know.
And I'm not supposed to have him. I'm lucky to get a guest like that.
Yeah, you just keep up the good work. I think they're real jealous of you.
All right, thank you, dear. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Estelle.
Why, I would keep him on the show. Don't forget this happened at an adult theater, and he was very honest about saying who he was. He didn't have to. He could have just given his real name, and nothing would have happened. So I think it's commendable that he did that. And then another thing I would like to suggest to you. On Saturday nights, you have a program about a dating, and I was shocked. That should be removed from the station's ethics. Lesbians dating one another and what they had to say, I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't believe my ears. They ought to cut all that stuff out and on television, and we'd have a better world today. Thank you.
No comment.
Oh, but there are lesbians, and they do date each other. We don't have a very tolerant attitude towards people without the same sexual orientation we have, do we, ma'am? What a bag. Anyway, let's go to Pat.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm very upset with what happened with Pee Wee Herman. We parents and grandparents teach our children to be very careful, do not talk to strangers. Look what's happening in the Northwest area with that rape man. Now, these kids listen to him, and if they think this is okay, they'll say, well, gee, that's not too bad. What kind of example are we setting for these kids?
Don't you feel somewhat betrayed by this act? I would feel that way if I were buying his videos and enriching this guy by having him entertain my kids. There's a certain trust that's built into that relationship, and I would feel as if this trust were betrayed.
Right, I feel that way, too. And I'll tell you, this lady who said, well, he gave his real name and he was honest, they would have found out who he was anyway.
Of course.
The press is very smart. And he has, to me, when you're a public figure, you have to hold up your reputation.
Exactly.
Certainly not doing that.
He shouldn't have been in that kind of a place in the first place.
All right, thank you for the call. I appreciate that. We're short on time. Let's go. We have one more. I think the tally is, what, about 50-50?
Pretty close.
Let's see. Dina?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Craig. How are you?
Good. We just have a couple of seconds. Yes or no on Pee Wee? What do we do with them?
I am appalled at these middle-aged ladies that are calling in and saying there's nothing wrong with it. That's what's wrong with our younger generation today. That nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong anymore. It's fine. That's why our morals, that's why our children have no conscience.
All right, I want to thank you for the call. I hate to cut you off, but we are up against the break. Dr. Feldman, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. I had a great time, Greg, anytime.
I'd like to have you back, definitely. Couldn't have picked a better day to be with me, too, that's for sure.
Okay.
But, because I have things that I can't talk about today. Anyway, we're coming up to 12 o'clock. Dr. Red Roberts is in next for the vacationing Al Rantels, Steve and Gary, and the contest tonight between 6 and 7.